For anyone who's been pregnant or has been around someone who is pregnant, you may be familiar with the phenomenon of the swelling of appendages you never knew could swell so much. As I'm pregnant, there are days when someone will ask me how I'm feeling, and all I can do is compare my swollen feet and ankles to those of a certain popular 80s doll, whose toes are only distinguishable by a thin thread separating them. In this episode, we'll be talking about the disputed creator of that doll, how the craze for this doll took off, and how Black Fridays of today can't hold a candle to the violence and mania that ensued in the early to mid-1980s. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind Cabbage Patch Kids. But first, a quick message. I know I haven't gotten into the meat of this episode yet, but if you've listened to past episodes of The Story Behind, I'd love to know what you think. You can leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever podcast app you use to listen, or you can email me at thestorybehindpod@gmail.com. Or you can find The Story Behind on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at The Story Behind Pod and message me through any of those. Thanks for listening. Xavier Roberts was a 21-year-old art student when he began experimenting with what's known as needle molding, a German crafting technique from the 1800s. He began crafting fabric sculptures and soon developed the idea for childlike dolls he called Little People in 1977. Roberts would use variations of names, outfits, hair color, eye color, and skin color to make sure that each doll was as unique as possible. Roberts would go to crafts fairs in the South and sell his dolls along with adoption papers, which included the names and features of each individual doll. And this was after having a discussion with each child customer over the responsibilities of taking care of these little people. Selling for $40 apiece, he realized he could make a profit and returned to his hometown of Cleveland, Georgia, and transformed a former medical facility into what's known as Babyland General Hospital, a nursery for visitors to come and see the birth of these dolls from a giant cabbage by lab-coated employees. As weird as that sounds now, it created a craze for these adoptable dolls. Oh, by the way, Roberts never refers to them as dolls, always as kids. This sounds like an amazing small-town boy creates $1 million idea, right? Roberts himself always referred to him as a good old Southern boy with a good idea. But was it really his good idea? Let's go back a bit to the early 1970s before Roberts had begun toying with needle molding. A woman named Martha Nelson Thomas was an artist who lived with her husband in western Kentucky. Her husband, Tucker Thomas, has said she was quiet, but connected with people through her art. And one of her many artistic hobbies included the making of self-sculptured dolls she called doll babies, which she would sell at local craft fairs. Each one was unique, with different hair colors, eye colors, outfits, and even came with individual adoption papers. Sound familiar? One day a man approached her and bought a few of her doll babies. He seemed extremely interested in the concept and the craft. That man, as you may have guessed, turned out to be Xavier Roberts, and when he asked for her permission to sell her dolls, she refused. But before she knew it, she was hearing from friends saying they saw her dolls being sold at airports she had never visited before, and she realized what was happening. Being the soft-spoken woman she was, she sought legal aid, and Roberts claimed he was inspired by the idea, but he made his own version. Nelson didn't own a copyright on her doll babies, which, at the time, would have been indicated by a tag with a copyright symbol on it. Because of Roberts' marketing techniques, no one wanted similar dolls that didn't have the Xavier Roberts signature on them. Eventually, Roberts finally settled the dispute with Nelson, who, ever still the soft-spoken woman she was, never divulged how much she received in the settlement. All she said was that her children would be able to go to college with it. For those looking for some sort of karmic retribution for Roberts, you can thank Garbage Pail Kids trading cards, produced by Topps. These cards mimic the features of Cabbage Patch Kids but gave them gross deformities and abnormalities, which Roberts hated. When the popularity of Roberts' adoption center took off, he attracted the eyes of Coleco in 1982. And if that name sounds familiar, you probably know them from the video game console of the early 1980s, ColecoVision. Following what became known as the video game crash of 1983, Coleco fell on hard times, and because of competition from home computers, a surge in competing video game consoles, and economic inflation, Coleco decided to change directions and jump on the adoption doll fad. They helped Roberts market and mass-produce the Cabbage Patch Kids, using their technology to replace the original hand-sewn heads with the vinyl ones most 80s kids are more familiar with. They even made a stamp of Roberts' signature, which was put on the butts of every Cabbage Patch doll. Here's a fun fact. The color of the stamp changed every year, so kids and collectors could keep track of what year they adopted their Cabbage Patch Kids. If you thought the videos surfacing every year of mass trampling and injuries from Black Friday were bad, you don't remember the mania that came with Cabbage Patch Kids.
Welcome to another holiday shopping season. When the doors opened at this Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania store, the pushing and shoving began. One woman was knocked to the floor and suffered a broken leg. This scene has been repeated in hundreds of stores across the country that advertise the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Parents would wait in line for hours before stores would open. They'd bribe employees to get a hold of these dolls, and customers and employees would arm themselves with things like baseball bats to keep themselves safe. People without kids would buy as many as they could for $20 each, and resell them to smaller toy stores for a small profit, only for those toy stores to sell Cabbage Patch Kids for up to $50 or more. Whenever a hot toy item comes out around the holidays that's hard to get a hold of, I hear people refer to it as this year's Cabbage Patch Kid. Cabbage Patch Kids continue to market new dolls every year, even though the parent company has changed a few times since Coleco went bankrupt in 1988. And sometimes they still tend to make news as they did in the early 80s, but not always for the best reasons. In 1996, Cabbage Patch Snack Time Kids were introduced. These dolls had rollers in their mouths for them to consume food with, and they were one of the most popular toys that Christmas. But by the next month, reports of children getting their fingers and hair stuck in the mechanism resulted in a voluntary recall by Mattel, who owned Cabbage Patch Kids at the time, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And one last thing. There's a rumor that President Reagan or the CIA commissioned Cabbage Patch Kids to be designed to look the way they do, to accustom everyone with how people might look following a nuclear attack. Oh, the 80s. Sometimes I miss you and you're crazy. No, that's just how the dolls and my pregnant ankles and feet are supposed to look. Information for this episode was sourced from babylandgeneral.com, womenyoushouldknow.net, snopes.com, timesleader.com, glamour.com, Time, The Victoria Advocate, and the book Toys in American Culture and Encyclopedia, and Vice.com, which has an amazing short documentary on Martha Nelson Thomas. For these links and more, visit the show notes at thestorybehind.com. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.